Hi everyone. Um, Cue the awkward, right? I'm still getting really used to doing these things. This time I'm actually looking at myself, so let's see how much that trips me up. But hi, it is week 2 of this tarot adventure that we started together, and um, yeah, it's as much of a surprise to me every time as it is to you guys, and it's really kind of starting to get exciting because I've done, last week's readings for myself, readings for a bunch of you guys, and now this week's reading. And I'm really starting to feel all these interconnected stories and collectives you guys are sitting in, the shared experiences and shared wounds and shared ideals and things like that. And it's really great because every single one of these that I'm doing is teaching me a lot about myself. I did one the other day that was and this will come up today too, but it was all about how you need to, a couple of them were like this, about reframing your expectations and the way we carry the roles in our life and how we got to be have a different relationship with that. Otherwise we're going to cause a lot of internal struggle. And yesterday I went through a really hard day with work, and my values around hard work and self-judgments and things, and it was just oh my gosh, it's the thing I've been saying in all these tarot readings, and here it is for me too. So this has been really a blessing in disguise in that way. So thank you for being here, everybody. And I'm also just learning so much more about tarot, and I'm getting better at it, and that's cool. It's cool. It's still not perfect, I'm still learning, but yeah, I'm getting excited. I have days where I'm excited about it, and then I have days where I'm, crying about the end of the world. So very human experience. Anyway, I'm a little more prepped this time. Like I said, in all those things I've been doing and all the readings, there's been themes, and there's been a couple different bird's eye view energies I've been talking about a lot. So I'm hopefully going to have the time to timestamp it this time, so that way if people want to get straight into the reading, they can cut ahead. But I think this part is actually can be important for some of you. It just depends. That's because there's different collectives here, and I've been a part of other tarot groups that were more specific, this is for the divine feminine, or this is this archetype, or whatever. And those messages are always they can be more laser focused because the collectives already kind of become a collective under shared intent. And this collective of us here on this Facebook group is I'm trying to get a handle on it and figure out the different similarities and things so I can work with it better. But they're gonna be broader messages unless you ask for a personalized one when I have the opportunity, because it's a broad audience. But the themes that I am discussing, I think, are still really important to what's happening right now. So some of this will resonate with you, some of it won't. That's kind of how these readings are going to go. So take what fits, and if you're curious about something that did fit, then I can do a personal one, or you can talk to me and I can maybe, that's the more feedback I get about that kind of thing that that did fit, then the more I'll be able to work with it, Okay, so so shadow work was the thing I was talking about last week, and it is really, really important right now, and it's going to come up, and there are going to be a lot of opportunities to work with it right now. But our shadows can be really, really, really heavy and very dark, and visiting them too much too fast can be dangerous, very dangerous, if we don't trust ourselves and our ability to do that. So I just wanted to clarify that, I don't want to seem too overly excited about making you all dig into your shadows, because that's can be very heavy work. So if you really need to trust yourself enough to know when it's become it would be too overwhelming to go too far, and maybe save that work for a professional or something. I have to my deep dark stuff, I have to do EMDR therapy for, so I shouldn't do that alone. So I'm just a tarot reader. Don't go too far into your shadow work if it doesn't feel safe. But and that being said too, you can set intentions for it, and give yourself different permissions. Give yourself the permission to not have to follow it as far as it wants to go. Allow yourself to take little pieces of it as it comes up. I was talking to somebody last week who was saying the past just keeps coming up in little pieces, and then that's a good opportunity to be, if it's just a little chunk at a time, and you can set the intention that you want that to happen for you too, then you can just be like working it with a memory at a time. You know, some of these deeper wounds will take, you know, cycles and cycles of a little at a time, so don't push yourself too far. But do know that the work is worth it if you can get in and clear out, you know, your shadow, your pain. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body, which literally, if you've got too much pain, it can just take over your body, and that's when you start having, like, you know, breakdown and saying things to your partner you didn't know, you know, you didn't want to say, and you have to say sorry about later. You yell at your kids or whatever, you know. It's like, you know, it's there, it has a presence in your life, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. So it is a good idea to start making peace with your pain body, or your shadow, or, you know, your core wounds. It's a good relationship to have. Just don't push it. Like I said, there's different collectives that I'm speaking to you guys on here through. Collectives just a way to describe feeling like there are similar energies, experiencing the same thing at the same time. It happens to me all the time. Like, me and my roommate are always going through the same hard lesson at the same time. We're always like having the, you know, we're going through the empowerment at the same time. Me and my mom have a lot of cycles that are connected like that. I see it in a lot of the men I know, are often going through the same kind of thing around the same time on a spiritual level. I think, you know, some of our collectives are kind of maybe like the way, I don't know, you know, I think I want to see it, it's a fluid thing. You don't have to identify with the collective, but often it's good to, it's helpful work to get into the archetype, so then you can kind of work with it. But so there's a lot of you here, and there's a lot of different things going on, and I guess I already said that earlier. Just take what resonates and tell me, you know, if you want me to expand on something that did resonate. And then here's just, there's a couple different energies I wanted to talk about right now. Like I said in the last reading, there's this weird double current of a rebirth and death that's happening. And those are just really, like, you know, they're just like powerful background energies. They're like part of, like, they're like the stage decorations for the current scene or whatever, you know. So like, it's influencing things. It's kind of seeping into a really like subconscious, subtle level of everything we're experiencing right now, because we have a lot of news access and a lot of it's so loud, it's hard to ignore. So that's there, but also like a lot of people, and I think sometimes too, like there's an answering of a call when things get dark. I think some people really find that within themselves. Some of us are being forced to find that within ourselves, depending if you have to work right now or not. You know, reality is really throwing a lot of people into forced heroics. So anyway, so I just talked about that a little bit, but there's just I feel that, like, someone online called them like the two different sides of Christ, the sorrowful, like, man in the garden crying, and you know, the joy has risen, kind of like rebirth energy, you know. So like, I have interesting opinions on like how Christianity ties into this, so I'm not like trying to make anybody look at it through that perspective, but I think it's relatable for a lot of people. So it's that dichotomy kind of like that's happening right now, because we're going through such like a intense moment. There's that heavy sorrow and that creative rebirth and joy. So I talked about that pattern a lot. For me, I'm experiencing it like I'll bounce in and out of them. I'll have a day where I kind of do all of them, like do both back and forth. I'll have a day that's all like, oh, I'm writing the joys of the discovery of my new passions. Today's the day I'm doing tarot. I'm going to write a song. And then, you know, like 2 days later, I'm like, you know, like in bed, feeling the weight of the world and thinking about the inevitable continued destructive patterns in our reality right now. So, you know, a lot of people are connecting this time period, which might, you know, I don't even know how long this time period is, but it's like, it's the tearing down of old systems. Today's reading is going to talk about that. So you're going to see a lot of that, a lot of things as we once knew them falling down, because there's going to be this rebuilding. And that rebuilding is just, I feel like it's such a pivot point right now, because there's so many things that are going to influence that, the outcome. And there's a lot of different forces of good and evil in our politics and you know, in our companies, and you know, the hearts and souls of the billionaires who own everything. So this journey of going like deeper within ourselves and really like learning these concepts on an individual level is increasing the likelihood, the more of us that do it, that what is birthed from this time period of destruction will be a truer truth. It will be a deeper expression of the people that live here and are interrelating here, you know. So there's a lot of writing about how this time, what America needs now is like a spiritual revolution. It needs a shifting of consciousness, because we keep doing that thing that I think it's like Einstein or something about how you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that got you into the problem. So anyway, I didn't write all that down, but that's definitely part of the theme here, is this restructuring. And it's it's this duality that's happening right now, the death and the rebirth, and it's there for us to access, you know, if we really want to try to get into the creative rebirth and work on the shadow work and stuff that's separating us from feeling that part of it. It's there, you know, that's there for the taking. A lot of us might have to just gently accept that we're going to be sitting in the more sorrowful part of these energies. And like I said, allow it to be fluid and accept that you're going to be doing these bounces. Don't like get all caught up in judging yourself. So that was one duality. And another one that is worth talking about, because I'm seeing it in this group and I do study it a lot, is it's often called the divine masculine and the divine feminine energies, that cosmic duality. So many reasons why this is difficult gender-wise, because this isn't supposed to be something that is forcing any kind of gender constructs. It's you know, just the way people have defined two polarizing energies. And so I'm thinking about like just trying to get used to saying yin is the feminine energy and the yang, is it yan or yang? Yan. So it's yin and yang. It's these like, you know, the balancing duality forces. It's like ancient Chinese or something. I was trying to look it up. So does line up sometimes with people who identify with a lot of masculine energy, or with people who identify with today's masculine standards. Often do align with having more of the yang masculine divine energy, but it's not, it's you know it's spiritual. It doesn't have sex and gender or any of those things. And I think it's really, you know, for many reasons important to realize that those energies are fluid. But when I'm talking about them, it's really just talking about an active energy and a passive energy, receptive and, you know, giving, just this balance of these two extremes. So a lot of people I know who have the yang, like a stronger masculine energy balance within them. And it's within ourselves too. Like my inner yang energy is also experiencing this. I don't want to get too into this, but anyways, there is there's a thing that there's if you're experiencing inner conflict right now where you really just can't make peace with yourself, there's a likelihood that like you have your yang energy is resisting your yin energy, which means like the active part of you, the external world doer, is kind of resisting the power of the receptive being. This is getting kind of deep. I guess I have like a lot of different audiences. So like I said, take what resonates, but I'll try to go back up a little bit because this is a little more complex. Anyways, so there's a theme of forgiveness and really looking at our guilt and our shame. And like I said, some people are having a more augmented experience of that theme because they're working with that energy more, but it's happening in a lot of us regardless of how we're defining the energy. So a lot of forgiveness of guilt and shame, and a lot of being gentle and allowing yourself to be new is a big thing going on there. And if you're having conflict with that, it means that you're pushing too hard, and you're not allowing softness to be of value to you. You're looking at that as weakness when it's really like the medicine you need right now. So like allow being receptive and soft and vulnerable to have power, and think about your judgments you're putting on that. And then on the flip side, our passive energy within us is there's a lot happening right now with grounding, getting really connected in our bodies, gentle daily routines of just finding balance and doing a little bit at a time, and trying to, just slow down and really ground into kind of a more gentle self-care. And, that's sometimes we resist that because we think it's weak or, not as important as doing things or being put into action. So anyway, there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of working with expectations happening right now, like people, the way we define our roles, what makes a good person a good one of those, like you good based on that role, where you get your understanding of what that role even is, like from your parents or your family. So we're really like trying to loosen our expectations enough to be gentle with our self-judgment, to like kind of clear out the self-judgment, honestly, so we be gentle with ourselves. And it's, I'm really feeling it a lot with some men I've been talking to, like, or really picking up some patriarchal standards of, how they should be or what makes them strong, or like they should have a family by now and following the logical plan. Like I've been hearing that a lot from people. There's a lot of stay-at-home moms right now who are having or not stay-at-home moms, just moms. I've been talking to the moms. I'm sure this is like an everybody experience, that are just having a hard time with their like being good enough at home, and feeling like they're not being good enough parents. So really there's big themes on looking at how harsh our expectations are, how we define our roles, where we learned that from, looking into ancestral healing. Family wounds are coming up a lot right now. A lot of clearing out of mother and father wounds, the relationships we have with our parents and immediate family members, or people who remind us of our parents. And it's really good because if we can start clearing out and getting to a point where we either can access the love from our parents that is there, or the love that should have been granted to us as children, whether or not we had it, and the more we can realize that universal love and accept it, then it can really help with the way that we perceive our connection to something bigger than ourselves, to our idea of God or a higher love. So because otherwise, if we are denying some of our, if something early in childhood taught us that we weren't worthy of love in a certain way, then we are probably going to project that onto the universe and be like, well, I didn't get that, happen this way because I didn't deserve it, or I'm not good enough for that, so that's why, you're going to start telling yourself, you're going to start creating a dialogue about a universe that's against you because something taught you that you weren't worthy of universal love. So we're healing. There's a lot of work there to be, to work with too, of healing out the things that divide us from believing we're worthy of love. And once you do that kind of inner work, it really affects your outer life. Like you're going to have, healthier relationships and be able to hold your own and not be operating out of fear as much. I'm going to stop this video now though, because this energy recap is like such a thing on its own, and I'll just label that and put it up there and highly recommend that people watch it if it's their thing. I was just going to say one more thing about abandonment wounds. That could just be another thing that's coming up in your past, especially if you're feeling isolated or feeling shut out or anything like that. There's sometimes there's a childhood memory of abandonment, or feeling like somebody wasn't there for you, or could be an adult memory, and then you end up in these dynamics with other people that are very attached. Abandonment wounded people find people who are like who also have abandonment wounds, but they run away instead, to avoid the pain of being abandoned, and everyone else and the attachers try to chase to because they're afraid of being abandoned. One's an avoidant response, one's an active response, and they just attract each other until people figure out that it's an abandonment wound. And so I just wrote that in my notes because it felt like it might be relevant to some people, especially since we're in isolation. So definitely recommend Googling any of this stuff. A lot of this that I mentioned, the family wounds and the abandonment wounds, just inner child meditations and revisiting your inner child can really help with that. But anyway, that is my little energy recap. And Yeah, I've already talked for 20 minutes. I have had a week. But I'm going to get into this reading now. I'll stop it and restart. And I'll try to make that a little more broad because there's just so much going on here. Feel free to let me know if there's any particular type of reading that if something in here resonated that you wanted to know more about, then recommend, because I haven't decided what I want the weekly personalized reading thing to be just yet, but those have been really fun and I like to do them. So go ahead when I do pop that up, make sure you put yourself on the list, guilt free, right? Okay, well, I am gonna go do the actual reading now because this turned into a talk fest. Thanks for listening to the people who listened. You are rock stars. I'm such a dork.